So the next step, now that you've marked where the block goes, you've cut out the size that you need, the last step is now going to be to do little finishing touches to clean it up. So if you don't want these marks, because they will be there forever, we're going to go ahead and erase those. Is that okay? Okay, so very lightly, I'm just going to take some pressure across and kind of fill in those marks. Now what you'll notice is the texture is now getting erased. So if you can see, I don't know if it's close enough that you can see, the texture of the canvas gets erased when I do this. That's okay, because glaze is going to erase that little bit of texture too. You're never going to see something this light and this subtle. Glaze is pretty thick. Think about like a donut, right? The glaze on the donut. It's kind of that same idea. It's pretty thick. Now I am going to leave just enough of an indication so I know where to put my block. Now, what happens if I didn't have these little marks in here still? If these little marks were erased and they were gone, I do have a little hack. Let me show you that too. You can take a ruler. I'm going to steal one. That's all one here. And you can put a ruler diagonal across from corner to corner. So if you didn't have those little marks, this is a little trick you could do. Now, this is the side of the ruler that I'm looking at. That means that this block would have to have this corner lined up on the ruler and would have to have this corner lined up on the ruler. Once those two are lined up, now it's just a matter of sliding it back and forth to figure out where the center is, right? But I can eyeball that. So when I get to this point, I could imagine a line going from here, hitting this side of the block, and going to there. Once I have that, I can put a little bit of pressure down, I can slide my ruler out, and now I know that I'm right in the middle. So if you don't still have those marks, it's okay. That's another way of getting it. All right, we have this beautiful design. We don't want to mess the design up. We also want to make sure, though, that the clay is compressed. Just like when we're on the wheel, we compress the bottom. We're going to do the same thing with the sides. So I'm going to take any sort of flat edge. Notice I'm just grabbing a piece of plastic that I found on the counter. And I'm going to put a little pressure and compress my side. I'm going to do that to all four sides. I'm trying not to press any of the plastic into it. I have to be careful about that. I don't want to get any sort of weird marks or dents. And I'm putting a little bit of pressure down on this block. I realize that I'm doing that, and it will make it slightly thinner, but not excessively. I'm not like crushing down, so you have to be kind of aware of your pressure. You don't want to damage anything. This last side here, making sure not to pinch the plastic. And I am putting quite a bit of pressure here. I don't know if you can sense that. You can maybe see my white knuckles. Like, I really am pushing pretty hard. And if it gets a little bit stuck, because I left it on there a little bit long, I just kind of roll it and it will release. It'll pick up a little bit of clay, and that's okay. All right, so this is centered. Our edges are all compressed. The last step is to flip it. Now, not last, but just to get to this next step. I probably shouldn't say last. I'm going to get all the little pieces away. Now, the same kind of deal, I'm going to put on a new board. So instead of being worried about that board and the plastic and everything else all at once, I'm just going to set the plastic on top of here first. I want to make sure I have a board that's larger than the actual platter. I'm going to center this board. Now very carefully, I'm going to go all the way under to the very, very, very bottom board. I'm going to pull it to the edge of my desk. I'm going to try to make a pancake. When I do this, I'm trying to put my hand directly below this block, my other hand above this block, so that when I turn it over, and I noticed that wasn't like dramatic. I didn't have to flip it really hard or really fast. You actually don't want to do any of that because your block might end up getting a little bit rotated or twisted, and you don't want that to happen. I'm going to take the top block off. I can give that to a friend, or I can put it back in the cabinet. I'm going to peel my top plastic away. Now here's the finesse part. Now even though that just rotated, don't panic. All it is the plastic itself that rotated. The block underneath it still stayed secure. Watch what happens. I'm going to very, very lightly apply some pressure on the outside edges. You see how those two edges kind of popped up? I'm going to go back and forth, kind of doing it back and forth slowly. I'm not putting any pressure here. I don't want that to sag in and kind of create a scoop. I want that to stay a straight edge all the way down. but I want all of my edges to touch all the way across. I don't want to squish the edges, right, because I don't want to have thin and thick spots. So I just kind of work my edges very, very, very lightly, applying pressure. If you do it all at once, it can stretch it and break it. So just light amounts of pressure, light pressure, until everything touches down. And I try to get it eye level so I can see if it's actually touched down. I'm going to lightly keep my fingers here. I'm going to come to this side. And I'm going to work it. Notice how I've started on one side and I'm working around, whereas before I was going opposites. And notice how you can't see any finger dents. So I'm touching this a lot, but you can't even see where I've touched. I'm being that gentle with it. Yay! So now it's flipped over. What we need now is we need feet. And you can kind of see the impression of where that block was. So now we're going to try to put feet on this.